Here's our daily update video for May 29th, 2020. And here's an awkward transition. Here is the news for May 29th. Now, this probably looks like one of those Japanese films where the voices don't match up. That's because, for whatever reason, iMovie did not want to transport the audio. So I am just talking over my screencast. My apologies. So today's top story, on a good note, is not COVID, but unfortunately it's the story that's the result of the death of Mr. George Floyd and, years of tension. And as the mayor of Minneapolis put it, of 400 years of anger and sadness. So if you've been watching the news either here or on your own the past few days, you noticed the death of Mr. George Floyd at the hands of the Minneapolis police. And later on that day and the next day, there were protests. Those protests have escalated both in the amount of people involved and of the actions taken by the protesters. So if you go to the New York Times, you see lots of different related stories. You also see this video here for a minute. When I watched this video this morning, it reminded me of when we learned about the Bastille in the French Revolution and the people taking down what they saw as the symbol of their oppression. It also mentions the story that President Trump issued a tweet against these protests about bringing in the National Guard, and the final line of his tweet referenced the phrase, "When the looting starts, the shooting starts." Many people have found that tweet to be appalling. Twitter actually put a warning over the tweet that it says it glorifies violence. The president has been very upset with social media even more as of late. He tried to sign an executive order banning some of what they're doing. So that's a side story of this that we'll see what happens. It also mentions the other protests that have been going on throughout the country as a result of not only Mr. Floyd's death, but other deaths of African Americans at the hands of the police, such as the case of Breonna Taylor in Kentucky. You see that down below. That is a story that probably did not get as much attention at the beginning of this pandemic as it should, and I guess it's maybe the pandemic why it did not receive much attention, or is it just because, as some people are claiming, because she was a black woman and it did not get the attention that it deserved. I will say I've been communicating last night through various people, an educator who's in Minneapolis who was sharing photos of what he was seeing and messages from his students and former students that are really living in the city and what they're experiencing throughout this. From a friend who's a leader in St. Louis about subsequent protests around that area, and not too far away in Ferguson, which was another site of police violence against the African American community previously. So here's the BBC. You see the stories are very similar. I will disclose also that I do come from a law enforcement family. My father, my brother, my sister, my cousins, I'm the weirdo teacher here of the group. But none of them obviously condone the actions taken by the Minneapolis police. And it's important to have discussions so they understand where these protests come from. I will disclose my sister does work as a police officer in an urban area in Camden, New Jersey. I will also say she's not white like I am, so her experience is different. I really wish we were in class right now to have these discussions. It's very important in order for healing and to any improvements to be made in our country so that people don't have these feelings of sadness and anger, that these actions don't happen by the police, that these protests don't need to happen. We need to communicate. So if we're not able to come together as a class, I hope you can talk with your friends and your family about these things. You do see the bottom left corner does have one COVID story, and it's about Moscow's COVID numbers doubling. So something for us to be mindful of. Other parts of the world still facing this crisis. This video here is 2 minutes long. I encourage you to stop by this website and see their story. You see they also mention things about the president's tweets as well. And even a YouTube story about adoption. And I did follow that yesterday. Anyway, so please watch the news over the weekend, see how things unfold, see what we can do as a community to be helpful. And also, if you get a chance, watch SpaceX Saturday. I'll give you an option to maybe earn some extra points on our last unit for it. Okay? Be safe, everyone. Here are today's assignments. Have a great weekend, Bulldogs. Be safe. Be well. Miss you.